What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. This time, we are going to jump back over to Marvel Comics, and we are going to continue our coverage over X Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. Now remember, this is technically a sequel to Hickman's Inferno, because after the ending of Inferno, the big question people had for Marvel Comics was, what is going to happen next for X-Men comics? Because Hickman was the man in charge of the X-Men books, and now he is gone. So Marvel kind of released this thing that is supposed to be similar to House of X and Power of X, because when Hickman releases both books at the same time, they tell one overarching storyline. So Marvel released X Lives of Wolverine and X Deaths of Wolverine, two books that tell one overarching storyline, but also telling us what could be next for X-Men comics. But each book is telling two different kinds of stories, where X of Lives really focuses on Wolverine and what is next with the character. With X of Deaths, it is more about the idea of following Moira Mactaggert after Inferno. That is actually important because when we see X Lives of Wolverine, we see Wolverine going back to different points of his past lives to save Charles Xavier. Because right now you have Omega Red going back in time to kill Charles Xavier. The other story, X Deaths of Wolverine, focuses on Moira trying to survive because Mystique is trying to kill her because of events in Inferno. But there's also another Wolverine right now running after her, except this is not our Wolverine. This is a new Wolverine. It is like a new one was born from cocoa, but out of some kind of egg. And so getting into X Lives of Wolverine number 3, we actually do pick up right now with teenage Wolverine trying to save Captain Xavier. Now remember, when it comes to teenage Wolverine, his body is being used by present day Wolverine. Because in the present day, thanks to Cerebro, Charles Xavier, and Jean Grey, they're able to take present day Wolverine's mind and send it back in time to different points of Wolverine's lives as a way to make sure Omega Red does not kill off Charles Xavier in the past. And so right now, the teenage body of Wolverine is being used by present day Wolverine to hopefully save Charles Xavier. Now, it's not really Charles Xavier here right now in the year 1900. Matter of fact, it is Captain Xavier. And I want to say this is the grandfather or father of Charles Xavier. Either way, this person right now has to be protected by Omega Red. Because if Omega Red is actually able to kill off this Captain Xavier, that for sure says in the future there is no Charles Xavier. Now, Captain Xavier is able to kind of defend himself at first when it comes to Omega Red taking over different people's bodies as a way to kill off Captain Xavier. Because when it comes to Omega Red, he's doing something very similar to Wolverine, except a tad bit different, where Wolverine is able to take over past versions of himself. When it comes to Omega Red, he's actually able to take over other people in the past bodies and use them as a way to kill off Charles Xavier, Captain Xavier, or Xavier's father. Either way, right now, when it came to Captain Xavier, every single one of his crewmates have been taken over by Omega Red. But when it came to Captain Xavier, he was actually able to defend himself until you had Omega Red take over a well and use that well as a way to hopefully swallow Captain Xavier. And so then we jump over to a different point in time. Because remember, when it comes to X Lives of Wolverine, it's all about the idea of Wolverine reliving different moments of his life as a way to protect Charles Xavier. And so right now, you have Wolverine having no choice but to relive the moments he had the chance to spend time with his soon-to-be dead wife, Itsu. Now remember, at the end of our last video for X Lives of Wolverine, Omega Red took over her body. Because when it comes to Omega Red, his idea is, listen, if I'm able to have you kill her, you're going to mourn for a very long time. You're going to be busy long enough so I'll be able to actually kill off Charles Xavier in some kind of way. And so right now, when it comes to Itsu, her body's being used by Omega Red and she has to fight against Wolverine. Now, the reason why I say soon to be dead, because she does die down the road. because she is killed off by the Winter Soldier when he was forced to work for Russia all those years in the past after World War II. But on top of that, though, she is killed off, but he has to make sure that she's killed off after Dakin is actually inside her body, that she's pregnant with Dakin. Because if she died before she gets pregnant with Dakin, then of course that means Dakin will not be born down the road in the present day. Now, Wolverine has to also make sure that he's not the one to actually kill off Itsu, because if he does kill her off, it could change the timeline. And so he has to fight her, but not kill her. And this right here is one of the hardest moments for Wolverine. But then that is the moment you have a third player jump in the battle, and that person has to be Romulus. And Romulus is the one who actually raised Dakin, because after Wolverine left his wife and she was killed off by the Winter Soldier, she was still pregnant with Dakin. And so Romulus came by and took Dakin and raised him to be the killer he was in the early days of his Marvel Comics appearances. Now, that is the moment where we do jump closer to the present day, but not actually the present day. A couple of days before the present day, where we actually pick up with Omega Red. Now, remember, in our last video, we had actually learned that when it came to Omega Red, apparently he was on X-Force. At some point in time, he was on X-Force, but we were never told about it. And the reason why, because it was a one mission and done. And the reason why, because Omega Red found out what X-Force did to him in the earlier comics of X-Force. And what I mean by that, Omega Red was actually working for Dracula because Dracula had what Omega Red needed to stay alive, which is the carbonadium synchronizer. He needs that to actually stay alive. Now, with that being said, though, when it came to Omega Red, he did get that from Dracula, but then he wanted to help X-Force get rid of Dracula. Now, X-Force and Wolverine, of course, did not trust Omega Red, and so they killed him off. Now, remember, when it comes to the X-Men, they now have the ability to bring someone back to life thanks to the Five. The Five have the ability to give you a new clone body and then download your memories into that new clone body. Now, with that being said, though, when it came to Omega Red, he did get a new clone body. His memories were downloaded into that new clone body. But here's the thing, though. Usually when you're brought back to life, you don't remember how you died. And so when it came to Omega Red, he had no clue he even died. And the reason why, because X-Force killed him off and brought him back to life so that he could be a listening device, because they gave him a newer version of the carbonadium synchronizer. But on top of that, it was also a listening device, so that when Omega Red did meet up with Dracula, they can make sure that one, Omega Red is not a traitor, and two, Omega Red is actually getting information from Dracula about what Dracula's plan was for Wolverine. That all took place in the earlier comics of Wolverine and X-Force. Either way right now, when it comes to Omega Red, he found out by Mikkel, the brother of Colossus. Now, you do have Mikkel give Omega Red the Cerebro Sword. Now remember, Cerebro Sword was made out of broken pieces of the first helmet of Charles Xavier at the very beginning of Dawn of X. And Magneto made it for Charles Xavier, but it was stolen from Magneto's room. And so, of course, Mikkel was able to actually use this as a way to get some kind of information about mutants across the world. Because remember, Cerebro has information on every single mutant across the world. Now, you then had Omega Red get stabbed with this sword, and it seemed like it gave Omega Red the ability to learn everything about Charles Xavier's life, meaning that all his different relatives and ancestors as well, to give him the ability to go back in time to kill someone to prevent Xavier to ever come to life. And so that is the moment where we actually do pick up with Wolverine reliving another moment in time where he's on Team X. Now remember, when it comes to Team X is really more of this special Black Ops team back in Wolverine's life, where he worked with Sabretooth and also Maverick for the American government, but also Weapon X. It was a joint operation to do more Black Ops work, but at the same time spread the fear that America is a very powerful country. Now, with that being said, though, when it came to Wolverine, remember, the present day Wolverine is able to take over the bodies of his past self and use those bodies as a way to save Charles Xavier from Omega Red. And so right now, when it comes to this version of Wolverine, he's all like, listen, I had to go AWOL on my team to hopefully save Charles Xavier. Now, Sabretooth hated the idea that Wolverine went AWOL. And so right now, you have Sabretooth saying, hey, I got to bring you back, dead or alive, hopefully alive. But honestly, you want to fight? I'm going to kill you because you went AWOL. And that right there is a huge no-no for our team, which means I kill you or I knock you out and take you back to our base. We get even harder punishment there. And so right now, it's Sabretooth trying to bring in Wolverine. Unfortunately, you have Wolverine beat down on Sabretooth and being able to leave. And when I say beat down, I really mean more of Wolverine shot a beehive that fell on Sabretooth's head, and now Sabretooth's getting stung by a whole ton of bees. And that right there can hold Sabretooth long enough to let Wolverine get away. And so getting back to the year 1900, we actually do pick up with Omega Red right now, still using the body of the Well as a way to kill off Captain Xavier. Because remember, this is the father or grandfather of Charles Xavier. Either way, if he dies, Xavier dies. And so right now, it's Wolverine just trying to get there in time to hopefully save Captain Xavier from Omega Red. And luckily for this Xavier, Wolverine does appear in time to save him from Omega Red and then begin the process of killing off the Well that Omega Red is trying to actually use. But getting back to the point where you have Wolverine right now fighting against his soon-to-be dead wife Itsu, but at the same time having to fight against Romulus as well, it's one heck of a battle. And the reason why, because Omega Red realized what he's doing here right now. If Wolverine wants to save Charles Xavier, he has to kill off his wife. But at the same time, Wolverine realized he can't do that. Because if he does that, Daken will not be born. Because right now, she's not pregnant with Daken just yet. But on top of that, though, when it comes to the timeline, Romulus has to call in the Winter Soldier to kill off Itsu so that Romulus can then raise Daken as a son. It all has to happen. And so when it comes to Wolverine, he has no choice here but to technically let Omega Red use her body just long enough so that Omega Red can find another body, so he'll use that body instead to kill off Charles Xavier while Wolverine is stuck here to fight against Romulus. And so right now, it does seem like Wolverine is about to fail because you do have Omega Red leave the body of Itsu, but Wolverine has to fight against Romulus. And unfortunately, he has to wrap this fight up quickly because if Omega Red is able to find another body to use, bam, there goes Charles Xavier. And so you do have Wolverine defeat Romulus, and he knows that this leads into Romulus calling up the Winter Soldier, and that kills off Itsu, and then Romulus raised the son of Wolverine, Daken or Daken. But Wolverine has no time to actually spend with his wife because he has to find Charles Xavier and protect Charles from Omega Red. But to close on X Lies of Wolverine number 3, we actually do pick up right now with Wolverine finding Charles Xavier. Now, when he does find Charles Xavier, his goal to find the person that's right now possessed by Omega Red, because Omega Red will use that person as a way to kill off Charles Xavier. Unfortunately for Wolverine and Jean Grey, they can't find anybody in the crowd close to Charles Xavier that's right now being possessed by Omega Red. But at the same time, Jean Grey says, I can still sense him here. He's somewhere here right now, and he's trying to find a way to kill off Charles Xavier. And that is the moment you have Wolverine tell Jean Grey, we got a problem. It's Omega Red now using my body as a way to actually kill off Charles Xavier. It's Omega Red now possessing the body of Wolverine. And this is where we end X Lies of Wolverine number 3. And so getting into X Deaths of Wolverine, we actually do pick up with Laura Kinney. Now remember, Laura Kinney is actually X-23, and she is the clone of Wolverine. Now, at this point in Marvel Comics, she does go by the codename Wolverine as well, because when Logan died, she took up the mantle as Wolverine, and when he came back, of course, she gave the mantle back to him, but then he said, we both can be Wolverines. And so she also used the code name Wolverine as well. Now, right now, she's walking around the island with her clone, Honey Badger, or better known as Scout now. That's her new code name. I don't like her new code name. By the way, I like her old code name better. Honey Badger, 10 times better. Either way, right now, you do have the two clones right now just walking around the island until they're contacted by Charles Xavier. Now, this is Charles Xavier saying, hey, listen, I have a mission for you too. I need you guys to go after this new random Wolverine that had popped up in the present day. It looks like our Wolverine, but we know it's not our Wolverine. It's some different kind of Wolverine. And so, of course, you have Laura ask Charles, why not send in Logan to deal with someone who looks just like him? But Logan's right now busy, which means it comes down to her and Honey Badger. And so it's really Charles saying, you two have to go out there and find him and stop him to learn more about him, but also take Daken as well. We need the Wolverine family to actually take care of this problem. And so that is the moment where we actually jump over to Epiphany Campus, Mountain View, California, where right now we actually see some guy known as Arnab who's about to make some huge announcement to the entire world about his company. Now, with that being said, though, that is the moment he is stopped by X-Desk. Now, remember, X-Desk is just a branch in the CIA that keeps tabs on the mutant race, on every single mutant around the world. But apparently, they got some information that his life is actually in danger. Now, you're kind of wondering, why in the world is his life in danger? Is this somebody that Moira Mactaggert could be coming after, or another mutant could be coming after him? And of course, we come to find out that right now, the new Wolverine, the one that's disappeared out of nowhere, is coming after Arnab. Now, at first, we have no idea why this Wolverine is coming after Arnab, but that is the moment we come to find out that this person right here is going to be very important for Moira Mactaggert. And what I mean by that is you have Moira tell us that she actually knows this new version of Wolverine. Because remember, when it comes to Moira Mactaggert, she has the ability to reincarnate, meaning that once she dies, she's able to relive her entire life all over again, but keep the memories from her past life. And so when it came to that, she did that about 10 times. But in one of her lives, she does remember meeting this Wolverine right here. And she knows that he is from the future. And matter of fact, we somewhat learned that in our last video, because the egg he came from that appeared randomly on the island of COPPA, Ford said this egg is 1,000 years old, which means that this Wolverine right here is also 1,000 years old. And so that tells us that in the far future, in a timeline, or in one of Moira's past lives, she met this Wolverine. She knows him very well. But on top of that, this Wolverine knew that when it comes to Moira Mactaggert, Arnab is going to be somebody very important to her for her special mission. And so that is why she had technically released a bunch of information to tell X-Desk that right now Arnab is going to be attacked by a mutant. And of course, X-Desk had to jump in to actually protect him and get him out of there, which of course helped her out because now she can follow him and hopefully have a one-on-one conversation with Arnab. And so she was actually able to sneak a ride onto Arnab's helicopter to jump him to actually talk to him. Now again, she needs him for some special reason. And that is the moment she says, because I need you to actually win the war down the road. You and I are technically going to work together to stop the mutant race. Now, this is huge because remember, back in Inferno, we learned that when it came to Moira Mactaggert, her ability to reincarnate and relive her life over and over and over again, her first 3 lives, she actually tried to get rid of the mutant race because she looked at the mutant race as some kind of disease that needed to be cured. And so with that being said, she had been trying to get rid of the mutant race. But after Destiny Mystique has stopped her in her 3rd life, her 4th and 10th life, her 4th through her 10th life, was her trying to actually save the mutant race. But every single thing she tried to do, she just kept failing over and over again. And so we learned that in Inferno, the 10th life, the life right now, is actually a good life for her and the mutant race, because the mutant race had actually secured a way to keep them winning from here on out. When it comes to Moira, she still looks at the mutant race as a disease, kind of like how the humans do. The ones out there do hate mutants a lot. And so right now, when it comes to Moira, she still wants to get rid of the mutant race. And apparently in the far future, her and Arnab, they find a way to actually defeat the mutant race. And so that is the moment where we actually jump back over to this new Logan that had appeared out of nowhere right now, fighting against the Wolverine family. So you have X-23, you have Daken or Daken, and you have Honey Badger, but they're all there right now fighting against this new Logan that had appeared out of nowhere. Now, while you have the Wolverine family fighting against this new Logan, that is the moment you have Daken realize, oh my God, it's my father. Like, it's literally my father, but from the future. Now, here's the big thing though. This could still be Wolverine or Logan, but at the same time, a different Logan from a different timeline. We have no idea. But right now, we're being told this is Logan from the future. Now, this is where things get a tad bit crazy, because you have Logan say, I come from a future where you guys were all dead. X-23, Honey Badger, Daken, they're all dead. And right now, he came back in time to prevent that from happening. He's trying to go back in time, stop Moira for being able to finish something that could wipe out the mutant race and to hopefully save his children in the future. But then we jump over to Moira Mactaggert, as we see her right now still talking to Arnab. Now, when they're talking, apparently Moira Mactaggert tells him everything he does in the future that helps her actually defeat the mutant race. Now, we have no idea what that is, but apparently Arnab is very important for her to be able to actually accomplish that goal down the road. And once he heard everything she had to say, he believed her just like that. And this man is down now to help her right now to be able to actually accomplish that goal, to get rid of the mutant race, to save the human race. And so he does give her a new machine arm to use, but on top of that, we do see some kind of robot that he has been working on. And apparently this robot could be the key into actually stopping the mutant race. But again, we have no idea. But she says this right here. The mutants are technically the devils if we're playing God right now, trying to save the human race. And so that is the moment where we do jump 1,000 years into the future. Now, when we do, we actually pick up with Wolverine. Now, when we do, this is where things get pretty crazy, y'all. Because this is Wolverine 1,000 years in the future, and apparently he is the last mutant in the future. The rest of the mutant race had died. Now, this is also the moment where the Earth is about to technically end, because the Earth is about to be taken over by the Phalanx. Of course, this techno-organic species that goes around the universe and just takes over planets. And right now, they're about to take over the Earth, which means the end of the Earth. Now, this is where things get pretty crazy because, like I said, Wolverine is the quote-unquote last mutant, but that is the moment he is confronted by Moira Mactaggert, and we kind of find out that Moira Mactaggert is the reason why the mutant race had died off in this future. But we also see her right now looking like, half machine, half human. And her goal right now is to kill off the mutant race. And so when it comes to Wolverine being the last mutant, she kills them off. And in her eyes, she finally did what she always wanted to do, which is kill off the mutant race completely. Now here comes the big problem though, because when it comes to Inferno, we had learned that this timeline, the one that Moira Mactaggert had made, is the perfect timeline, meaning that in the future, the mutants won. Machines and humans lost. Mutants won. But apparently, this Wolverine saying, no, in the future, we actually lost. And so that right there is kind of confusing, because now the question is, what is true, Inferno or this book right here? Either way, apparently after he was quote unquote killed off by Moira Mactaggert, he came to the past to hopefully stop her and save the future. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.